being a NFL Pro Bowl linebacker. Came up to the booth, told me how much he loved Brooks. We invited him up during a game. He spent a couple of innings with us with his son, who happened to be named Brooks because he named his son after Brooks Robinson. That old story about in New York, they named candy bars after their stars. In Baltimore, we named our children after Brooks. I don't know how many times I would see Major League Baseball players come up to Brooks during batting practice before a game and say, "Hey Brooks, will you sign this ball for me?" Of course he did, he always does. But that's the way his peers respected him. We've got a couple of Hall of Famers who sent their well wishes to Brooks, and I'd like to read what they said. "Congratulations, Brooks. You know how much your career meant to so many of us, especially your fellow third baseman. You will forever be the man that is known for setting the standard for the position, the standard I chased my entire career. I'm sorry I'm unable to be with you and Connie for this unveiling. I look forward to seeing it in person next summer. I know you've been battling health issues and want you to know Don and I have your healing in our prayers. Our best to Connie and your family, and enjoy the honor the statue represents," was signed by Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt. Another one a little closer to home says, "Brooks, I wish I could be there today with you and Connie to help celebrate this wonderful and well-deserved honor. You have been a man who I have admired for as long as I can remember. It started when I was just a boy, and my dad and mom pointed you out to me and told me you did all the right things both on and off the field. How lucky was I to get to know you and to find out firsthand just how right they were. You are Mr. Oriole, and while you may have grown up in Arkansas, we consider you a Baltimorean just like us. Thank you for your friendship and for the memories you have provided us, and for the way you have represented the city of Baltimore, the Orioles, and the game of baseball all these years. Congratulations," signed Cal Ripken Jr. And I think like Josh represented the fans, those two letters represent your peers, the guys you played with and against, Brooks. It's unanimous. Thanks for those kind words from Cal and Mike. In 1983, we remember that. Remember when Brooks turned Cooperstown orange? A lot of you were there, right? It was a special year. And joining us today, the president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, please welcome Jeff Idelson.
Thank you, Scott. Ladies and gentlemen, Brooks, Connie, the entire Robinson family, and the other distinguished guests. On behalf of Baseball Hall of Fame Chairman Jane Forbes Clark, our board of directors, and the entire staff in Cooperstown, I can't tell you what it is to be what an honor it is to be here today. I can't think of a more appropriate way to honor someone of Brooks' stature than with a magnificent work of art. It's truly remarkable and a fitting tribute to a man whose legacy and accomplishments stand taller than most. You know, working at the Hall of Fame, you're supposed to love all 30 teams equally, and you're supposed to love all your Hall of Famers equally, and the operative word being supposed. Well, I grew up in Boston, and for my 5th birthday, my parents and grandparents took me to see my first ball game at Fenway Park. Red Sox and Orioles were playing in Twinsville, and I remember hearing about Carl Yastrzemski and Jim Lonborg and Reggie Smith, but the player who left a lasting impression that day for me was Brooks Robinson. He made a couple of great plays, he had a few hits, and he became the first ball player that I admired, other than my father who played neighborhood pickup games. And I vowed to always play hard and always get my uniform dirty, just like number 5. You know him well, as he's had quite a love affair with your fine city, dating back 56 years to 1955 when he signed with the Orioles out of high school. And we were fortunate enough to acquire him in Cooperstown as a free agent in the summer of 1983 when he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first ballot. I guess if you're going to be with 2 teams for your career, the Orioles in the Hall of Fame isn't too shabby. Given what he's meant to the Orioles and the way he's conducted himself on and off the field, it's no surprise that half of Baltimore did show up in Cooperstown for his induction, and at the time it was the biggest induction crowd ever for a Hall of Fame weekend. On that day, Brooks rewarded the fans with these words. He said, "I share this day with my adopted hometown because the people of Baltimore have supported Brooks Robinson not only on good days, but also on bad days. My career has been all the more meaningful because of the Oriole fans and friends, many of whom have made this trip to join me here today." As a player, this was a guy who possessed a terrific mix of power, defense, and consistency, and he owned third base. In fact, the great Los Angeles Times sports writer Jim Murray once said, "When Brooks Robinson retires, he's going to take third base with him." Over a stellar 23-year career, he set the American League record with 268 home runs as a third baseman. He represented the American League at third base in 18 All-Star games, and he earned a record 16 Gold Gloves for defensive excellence. Those 16 Gold Gloves were consecutive from 1960 to 75. There was no one better at third base in the American League for 16 consecutive years, and that is an awfully long time. In fact, Hall of Fame third baseman Pie Traynor, who started for the Pirates from 1920 to 1935, once said of Brooks, "He's just the best that there is." Brooks was MVP of the 1970 World Series, hitting .429, and he was so stellar defensively that his glove, not his bat, but his glove from the series is in Cooperstown and there to stay. It's also when he earned one of baseball's greatest monikers, the human vacuum cleaner, after sucking up everything that Lee May and the rest of the Reds hit to him. You know, making it to the Baseball Hall of Fame is incredibly, incredibly difficult. 1% of the 18,000 players who have worn a Major League uniform are represented in Cooperstown. 1 out of 100, 1%. And they earn their way to stardom in very different ways. Hitting for average, hitting for power, pitching, fielding, base running. But there are some common traits that they all share. Tremendous character, integrity, and sportsmanship. And in many ways, it's fair to say that Brooks has set the bar. If you don't believe me, listen to these words from his induction speech. He said, "Throughout my career, I was committed to the goodness of the game. In fact, I feel my love for the game of baseball overrode everything else. I shall do what I can to continue to make this great game of baseball and this world finer and better." In closing, I think it's fair to say there were no better competitors than Brooks, no one who respects the game more than he does, and certainly nobody greater between the white lines, especially when the chips were down. And most importantly, there's no better human being than this man from Little Rock, Arkansas, who calls Baltimore home, the very classy Brooks Robinson. Thank you.